Okay, so I promise I will go easy on you, and I know I've been there, so I know it's getting late, so don't worry, I got you. And so today we talk a lot about simplicity, and I also like to start this talk with what is the golden rule about development, and it is to just keep it simple. Well, we know this rule by the saying, keep it simple, stupid. And I can't help myself, but every time I read it, I think like it is a personal insult to me. Also, the acronym is KISS. So like before, you insult me, and now KISS. Just go easy with it because I might be into it. So moving on. Also, this guy once said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And for the one of you who didn't know who this guy is Leonardo da Vinci, and not to confuse it with this other guy. And he's also famous for a particular art that the Mona Lisa that unfortunately got ruined some time ago. And this same guy who was bragging about simplicity is the same guy who managed to build a 200 moving part flying machine, and it didn't even work. So I guess that geniuses even struggle with simplicity. So the thing is that when we try to simplify something, we somewhat end up with complicated things, adding one thing there, one thing here, and pretty soon it's anything but simple. So here is the challenge. How can we build simple features that are easy to use and flexible without making ourselves crying to sleep 6 months later when we are going back to our code? And this is where design comes in. And we are not talking about UI design. We can leave it for CSS Day next year if you want to. We are talking about building something that works well in different situations, that can be reused by other developers, and won't be too hard to maintain. And well, Angular promises us to give us those tools to achieve that. But anyone who's tried to build a good component and features with Angular knows that it's easier said than done. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm Joelvis Pimentel, and I'm currently a front-end developer at Dinova. And I spent a lot of time figuring out what makes component good, and sometimes what makes component bad. I specialized myself in Angular development, and as of today, I should say that it has been a good companion. In particular, I've been working on building component libraries, and I found out what a challenge really it is. So it was a challenge that made me look to development from a different perspective. And today I want to take you into a journey to show you this new perspective that I learned and show off the things that I hope you will take your development from another approach. So before starting, a little disclaimer, we are going to see a lot of code from here, but just to clarify, we are not focusing on the code itself. I want you to focus on the mentality that is behind it and the reasoning. And if there is something that needs some explanation in deep, I will just go further with it. So don't worry. Okay, talking about simplicity. Let's start with the symbols of all interactive button. The button. It's so simple that the syntax HTML gives us to declare it is just this. This is all it takes to draw a button. But we are Angular developers and we like to overcomplicate stuff. I personally like to overcomplicate stuff. So luckily for us, today we have an assistant that will help us making this button Angular compliant. This is Joseph. So Joseph, please go on and do your work. Okay, so looks like Joseph is maybe a little bit nervous today, like me, but I think he messed up something here. Okay, let's see what is going on. First of all, he did use a custom selector for the button. This way, the browser will not recognize this button as a native button, and therefore Joseph needed to re-implement some of the native features that usually come along with the button. He also defined all the style inside the template of the component, and this will limit user from outside from overwriting the component CSS. He also used an input string to pass to write content inside the button. So user from the outside who use this button will not be able to draw whatever they want. So I see that there are some major flaws with the design, and I think we should put where it deserves, in trash. So sorry, Joseph. But what did go wrong with Joseph's design? Well, Joseph did what we all do when we skip leg day. He skipped a lot of steps in the development process. And in particular, he skipped one important step, that is feature design. So what is actually feature design? Feature design is the process of picking an architecture and designing its API for the component. And it's a crucial step in the development process because we are avoiding mistakes that can potentially lead to technical debt in the future. So let's take a look on what we can do to improve the button made by Joseph and make it, let's say, perfect. Okay, first of all, what we can do is using a native selector. This way, the browser is going to treat our button like a native button. No need to re-implement all the features. Second thing, we can use ng content. This way, developers that are using this button can freely draw whatever they want inside of it. And using our component will be as simple as just using the native one with a custom selector applied to it. And what about styling? Well, we can use host binding to define style for our component. This way, developers will be allowed to overwrite it from the outside. And some of you might have noticed that we are missing a condition here. We need to check if the button is disabled or not, but this is a native button, so we don't have access to the disabled property. How we can do this? So there is a way, actually. We can just define an input, let's call it disabled. It's a Boolean, true or false. And then with host binding, we can assign the same input to the disabled native property of the button, basically overwriting it. And then to access the disabled property, we can just bind to the disabled input. So some of you might have noticed that I'm using a weird function here that is called coerce Boolean property. I want to clarify that this function is optional, but it is a real cool function that is provided by Angular CDK that basically allows developers to use this input like a native input. So we are not going to need to specify true or false when we need to set the disabled state of the button. Just slap disabled into the tag and it's going to work. This coerce property is also available for numbers and string arrays. So check it out. It's really cool. So we did it. We made the perfect button, right? Well, I lied to you. All this button example was a clickbait. A clickbait. Yeah, thank you. Well, that's because the perfect design does not exist. Actually, the perfect design does not exist because it depends on mainly two factors. It depends on the tools we have available, and in our case, it's Angular and the tools Angular provides to us. And it also depends on our goal. Sorry. And from this whole talk, I want you to remember one thing, only one thing. It doesn't matter if you are skipping feature design, because even skipping feature design is a design choice by itself. Good, bad, it depends. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. You could be in a hurry and you need to meet some deadlines, so you are aiming for the just make it work approach. Or maybe you could be focusing on performance optimization and you need to consider bundle size, async operation, etc. Me, for example, when I was building the component library, I thought that my goal was to pack as many as features as I could inside this library and also make good UI looking components. But I quickly realized that my goal wasn't about fancy features and UI. See, when you are developing for others, and by others I mean other developers, you're being it your coworkers or developers from around the world, you quickly realize that your goal is shifting from delivering features to developer experience, making straightforward components that are easy for developers to use and maintain. This approach is called developer-first design. And beside the fancy naming, it all comes down to one simple question we should ask ourselves when developing. How should other developers use our component? So let's stop talking about theory and let's see this in action. Let's say we have a feature request that is asking us to turn a simple HTML string into a chip. So maybe add some background, some padding, something like this. So how we can do that? We did it with the button. We can just wrap it inside a component. And our component might look like something like this. Very simple. So far, so good. We like it. But okay, see, like we had a new message. Let's see who is this. Oh fuck. Okay, it's Joseph. Thank you, Joseph, for being here again. And he's asking us to add a checkbox feature to our component. So we are not going to worry about this. We can just add a configuration, let's say an input that we will later handle inside our component. And maybe this input will come along with other configuration, like that depends on the checkbox logic and form control and blah, blah, blah. And our result component might look something like this. So it's a little bit complicated, but I mean, remember, our component, the design we choose, should be good for our use case. So I think this is a good design as far as it goes. So it's not really complicated. Our goal, I think, is met. But the problems comes when we get more feature requests. So thank you, Joseph, for writing us again. This time, Joseph is asking us to also add the radio button capabilities to our chip and also add the cancel button to our chip. So usually when I get this kind of request, I just go crying in a corner. Or even better, if there is a coworker that is sick at work, maybe I'm some flu, I just talk to them so I can get that 5 to 10 days out of work because of COVID. No, just kidding. And seriously, don't come to work when you're sick, please, or just don't come to work, to the office. Yes, it's even better. So back to the track. What we can do, we can develop 4 different components. Okay, problem solved. So while this design might be good for some, remember, it all should fit your needs. But I think that for us, we are missing some very important perks here. Where, well, we have separation of concern because of course we are creating 4 different components, but we are repeating yourself and we have lack of maintainability and scalability because of that. So the question I think we should ask next, it is what tools does Angular provide us? And well, Angular provides us a really cool tool, and it's called directives. And I know directives are like that weird uncle that nobody wants to talk about because it's really boring at parties, but I think if you talk to him, it could be fun sometimes. So the fact is that we can, in fact, pack all the features we need inside directives and using those directives to give those features to our base component. How? Let's see this in action. So, of course, we could create a new directive that only responsibility is handling the checkbox feature, setting custom classes and managing events, all the things that we need. And please, for the sake of God, always implement control value accessor when you are building custom inputs. It will save time for other developers that are going to use your input. So every time you are building something that needs to store a value and needs to and is going at that value and is going to be changed by the user, control value accessor. And I know that some of you are thinking, well, directives are good, but they don't draw anything. They don't have a template. So how are we going to draw that little checkbox? How are we going to manage visual elements? So luckily for us, we have a component. We have the chip component of the chip component as a template. So what we can do is just handle the checkbox inside the chip template. And we can inject the checkbox directive. And using the optional attribute, we are basically telling Angular that this directive, the checkbox one, is not mandatory. So if there is the directive, we are going to drop the checkbox. And if there is not, nothing is going to change. At the end of the day, this will be our result. We can just use our base chip component. And when we want to use some of the features, we just add the directive to it. And when we check our list of perks, we can see that we checked them all. That's because we are separation of concerns, because we are 3 different directives that only handle their own logic. We are not repeating ourselves because the template is only found in one place, and also this whole thing is maintainable and scalable. And I think we are unlocking here a new perk, composability. Well, what is composability? Well, according to ChatGPT, composability is the ability to combine features to create more complex systems. And I think that what we actually did here. So far so good, but I have one more thing. This is my first presentation. I had to include the one more thing slide, so forgive me. And I want to show you some of the perks that come with composability, because Angular didn't stop here with composability. So let's see it with another example. Let's see we have the same chip with a checkbox, and we want to extend it with some accessibility features, like maybe tab, focus, and making the whole chip clickable. What we can do, of course, directives. So we can write another directive that will implement all the features we need. And this directive, as a selector, will have our this selector, this directive as a selector will be clickable. So to implement it, we'll just need to add the clickable selector to our component. So, but I see a little problem here. With this solution, every time we want to use the checkbox chip, we have to remember to also add the clickable directive. Isn't there a better solution to this? Well, it turns out that from Angular 16, we can include directives directly in the host directives attribute in the decorator of directive and components. And this is extremely powerful, because now we can add composability in multiple layers. In this example, we are adding our checkbox directive automatically to our checkbox we are adding clickable directive automatically to the checkbox directive and to the radio button. And those directives can be optionally added to our chip. Then our chip will inherit all the feature going up. There is also an extended syntax for declaring host directives that allows you to specify inputs and outputs. And this basically allows the developer who is using our feature to use those inputs and outputs when they are using the host component that hosts our directive. Okay, so we are taking a journey from buttons to chip, from features to composability, and now we arrive at, I think, what it is a crucial question. Why all this effort to build custom components when we have so many libraries that already do the job? So you're right, like, we should not reinvent the wheel. But I should say that going out there and picking something pre-made is just like going to IKEA and buying some furniture. They are affordable, they are simple, useful, they are standard, they save time, but they only fit certain spaces. And as an app grows, it quickly becomes complex, and standards do not fit anymore. And this will happen 100% of the time, I can guarantee you. And what you're going to do then? Well, you will need to build your own solutions. And this forces you to understand what the underlying architecture of a feature, a component, a directive, whatever, what's on the underlying architecture is. And I think that this is a more valuable knowledge than just making things work. So by dedicating just a little time To design a feature before just jumping straight into coding, we can not only become better developers, but we can also improve our code bases, making them simple and more maintainable. And by approaching the developer-first design, we are also making that coworker thanks us in the future, and we will also make our future self be thankful with us. So, next time you are tempted to skip feature design, ask yourself, could this be a great opportunity to improve myself and grow as a developer? Well, the answer will probably be no, but now at least you know what to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One moment that I open. Okay, I have a question for you. Having the main component rendering parts of the template depending on the presence of a directive sounds like an inversion of the usual logic flow, where components are agnostic of directives that are applied to it. Doesn't this make the component less maintainable?
Well, I should say that in the optic of building a component like this that we had in our example, that we know from the beginning that is going to be packed with this feature, I think that actually with the tools Angular provides us, there is not other better solution. I think that also it is better to encapsulate all the template logic inside the chip component, because now we have only one place where we have to look to make changes in the future. Like if we want to change the style of the chip, we just have to look for the chip component. We don't have to look for or for directives or for components. Only one place. So this is like do not repeat yourself dry concept in action.
Then, can we have nothing? Okay. Just saying thank you because they were asking the slides, and yes, I think they will share with you after
Thank
the talk. And another, it's not a question; they just say awesome talk. So, thank you very much. Please, a huge applause.